Russia had calculated that its sophisticated S-400 air defense systems would create an impenetrable shield over Moscow. However, on March 14, 2026, something slipped through that shield so quietly that Russian command didn't even acknowledge its existence for 72 hours. The object that entered Russian airspace wasn't a hypersonic missile, wasn't a stealth bomber, and wasn't anything the Kremlin's military doctrine had prepared for. What crossed into Russian territory was a fleet of 43 autonomous AI-powered surveillance drones operating in perfect coordination, each one equipped with quantum-encrypted communication systems that render traditional electronic warfare completely useless. The silence from Moscow isn't strategic ambiguity. It's the sound of a military establishment realizing that the rules of aerial sovereignty just changed forever, and they have no answer. The images you are about to see on your screens will show you exactly what these drones captured during their unprecedented 6-hour flight over some of Russia's most sensitive military installations. The footage shows details that even satellite imagery cannot provide. But that is not the most shocking detail. There are 3 main factors that made this penetration possible, and each one represents a technological leap that defense analysts are calling the most significant shift in military aviation since the invention of radar. The first factor is the drone swarm's distributed intelligence system that allows them to operate without any external command signal. The second is their adaptive camouflage technology that changes their radar signature every 12 seconds. The third factor we will reveal in the later parts of this video, and it involves a partnership between 2 nations that Moscow never saw coming. Now let us descend to that first moment when Western intelligence detected the anomaly. According to reports from the Institute for the Study of War, the operation began at precisely 0347 hours Moscow time on March 14, 2026. The launch point was identified as a remote facility in northeastern Estonia, approximately 180 kilometers from the Russian border. Estonian Defense Ministry sources, speaking on condition of anonymity to Radio Free Europe reporters, confirmed that the drones were part of a joint NATO test program designated Operation Silent Guardian. The drones crossed into Russian airspace over the Pskov region, an area that hosts critical early warning radar installations and is home to the 76th Guards Air Assault Division. What makes this penetration particularly significant is that Pskov represents a key node in Russia's Western air defense network, a system that Moscow has invested over $15 billion upgrading since 2022. The 43 drones that entered Russian territory are not conventional unmanned aerial vehicles. These are 5th-generation autonomous platforms developed through a collaboration between American defense contractor Northrop Grumman, Israeli aerospace company Elbit Systems, and a lesser-known Ukrainian technology firm called Quantum Aeronautics based in Lviv. Each drone measures exactly 2.4 meters in wingspan with a total weight of only 18 kilograms, making them incredibly difficult to detect on conventional radar systems. According to technical specifications leaked through defense industry publications, these platforms employ a revolutionary propulsion system based on distributed electric motors that produce almost zero acoustic signature. The noise level at 100 meters distance measures below 35 decibels, quieter than a normal conversation. But the truly revolutionary technology lies in their communication architecture. Traditional drones require constant data links to ground control stations, creating electromagnetic signatures that electronic warfare systems can detect and jam. These new platforms use quantum-entangled communication nodes that create unhackable, undetectable coordination between units. German intelligence reports obtained by Politico describe the system as a mesh network, where each drone functions simultaneously as an independent operator and part of a collective consciousness. The sensor packages carried by these drones represent another quantum leap in surveillance capability. Each platform carries a hyperspectral imaging system capable of distinguishing between different types of metal alloys from an altitude of 3,000 meters. This allows the drones to identify not just vehicles and equipment, but specific weapon systems and even determine their operational status based on thermal signatures and electromagnetic emissions. The synthetic aperture radar systems integrated into each drone can create 3-dimensional maps with resolution down to 5 centimeters, penetrating camouflage nets and detecting underground facilities through ground-penetrating radar pulses. According to analysis from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the combined data collection capability of a 43-drone swarm exceeds what a single satellite constellation costing $2 billion could achieve, and it does so with real-time adaptability that satellites cannot match. the tactical success of penetrating Russian airspace translates into devastating operational advantages that cascade through multiple levels of strategic calculation. The 6-hour flight path documented by open-source intelligence analysts using flight tracking data covered approximately 1,400 kilometers of Russian territory. The drones crossed over 7 major military installations, including the Pskov airbase, where Russia stations its Il-76 strategic transport aircraft, the Ostrov air defense complex housing S-300 and S-400 batteries, and the Kursk ammunition depot that stores an estimated 40,000 tons of artillery shells and rocket propellants. At each location, the drones descended to altitudes as low as 400 meters, well within the theoretical engagement envelope of Russian air defense systems. Yet not a single intercept attempt was recorded. This operational reality creates a strategic nightmare for Moscow's military planners. If NATO can fly surveillance drones with impunity over sensitive installations, the fundamental assumption of territorial air defense collapses. Russia has spent decades and hundreds of billions of rubles constructing layered air defense networks based on the premise that they can deny airspace to adversary aircraft. That premise died on March 14th. The intelligence gathered during this single operation provides NATO with targeting data that would normally require months of satellite passes, signals intelligence collection, and human source reporting to compile. Geolocated footage confirms the exact positions of mobile air defense systems, reveals troop deployment patterns, documents equipment maintenance cycles, and maps underground bunker networks. Defense analysts speaking to the Moscow Times estimate that the data collected during Operation Silent Guardian would take traditional intelligence methods between 8 to 14 months to acquire with equivalent fidelity. More critically, the real-time nature of drone surveillance means NATO now possesses dynamic intelligence, showing how Russian forces actually operate rather than static snapshots of where assets are positioned. The drones captured Russian soldiers conducting routine patrols, documented shift change patterns at ammunition depots, and recorded the daily flight schedules of transport aircraft. This granular operational intelligence transforms NATO's ability to plan contingency operations because it reveals the rhythms and vulnerabilities of Russian military logistics. The geopolitical implications extend far beyond the immediate military intelligence value. This operation represents the first practical demonstration that autonomous AI-powered drone swarms can operate in contested airspace against a peer military power. China has been watching Russian air defense performance in Ukraine with intense interest, using Moscow's experience to refine its own integrated air defense systems protecting the Taiwan Strait. The lesson from March 14th is unambiguous. Traditional air defense architectures built around radar detection and missile interception cannot counter distributed autonomous swarms employing quantum communication and adaptive camouflage. According to preliminary analysis from RAND Corporation researchers, the Chinese People's Liberation Army will need to completely rethink its multi-layered air defense concept that currently relies on HQ-9 surface-to-air missiles and anti-aircraft artillery to protect invasion routes to Taiwan. If swarms of similar drones can penetrate Chinese airspace to provide real-time targeting data to Taiwanese and American forces, the entire calculus of an amphibious invasion shifts dramatically. The economic dimensions of this technological breakthrough create equally significant strategic pressure. Russia's defense industry has marketed its S-400 air defense system as the world's premier counter-air platform, securing export contracts worth over $20 billion with countries including Turkey, India, China, and Saudi Arabia. The S-400's failure to detect, track, or engage 43 drones flying for 6 hours over Russian territory fundamentally undermines the system's value proposition. Turkey paid $2.5 billion for its S-400 batteries in 2017, accepting sanctions and removal from the F-35 program as consequences. Indian defense planners committed $5.4 billion to acquire 5 S-400 regiments between 2018 and 2025. If these systems cannot defend against drone swarms that cost roughly $2 million per platform, the entire export market for Russian air defense technology faces collapse. This creates cascading economic consequences for Russia's defense industrial base, which depends on foreign sales to maintain production capacity and fund research and development. Without export revenue, Russia's ability to modernize its own air defense networks deteriorates, creating a downward spiral of technological obsolescence. The NATO alliance dynamics reveal another layer of geopolitical transformation. Estonia, with a population of only 1.3 million and a defense budget of approximately $800 million annually, just demonstrated the capability to conduct deep penetration surveillance over Russian territory. This represents a fundamental shift in the alliance burden-sharing equation. Historically, only the United States possessed the satellite constellations, stealth aircraft, and intelligence infrastructure to conduct strategic reconnaissance over Russia. Now, small Baltic states can contribute high-value intelligence collection using relatively affordable autonomous drone technology. According to Lithuanian Defense Minister's statements to Baltic News Service, Lithuania is already negotiating to acquire similar drone swarm capabilities with deliveries expected by the fourth quarter of 2026. Latvia has allocated €120 million in emergency defense spending specifically for autonomous platform acquisition. The collective effect transforms the Baltic region from a vulnerable defensive position requiring American security guarantees into an active intelligence collection network that enhances NATO's overall situational awareness across the entire Russian western border. But now we must examine the human dimension of this technological shift, because behind every strategic calculation are leaders making decisions under unprecedented pressure. Imagine being a Russian air defense officer on duty at the Pskov installation on the night of March 14th. Your radar screens show nothing unusual. Your electronic warfare systems detect no hostile emissions. Your protocols require visual confirmation before weapons release. But in darkness at 3,000 meters altitude, visual acquisition of an 18-kilogram drone is essentially impossible. You follow doctrine perfectly, yet 43 hostile platforms cross your defense zone, photograph your installations, and depart unmolested. The psychological impact on Russian air defense crews is devastating. These are professionals who have trained their entire careers on the assumption that Russian air defense supremacy is unquestionable. That certainty is now shattered. According to leaked internal Russian military communications obtained by Ukrainian intelligence and shared with German media outlets, at least 12 air defense officers in the Pskov region have been relieved of duty pending investigation into the March 14th penetration. The charges include negligence and dereliction of duty, despite the fact that current Russian air defense doctrine simply has no protocols for countering quantum communication drone swarms. The Kremlin's silence on this operation reveals leadership paralysis more than strategic calculation. Russian state media has not mentioned the incursion. No official government statement has acknowledged that NATO drones flew over Russian territory for 6 hours. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has not commented publicly since March 12, 2 days before the operation. This is not normal Russian information management. When the United States flew reconnaissance aircraft near Russian borders during the Cold War, Soviet media would immediately publicize the incursions as evidence of American aggression, using the incidents to justify defense spending and rally domestic support. The silence in March 2026 suggests something different. Moscow has no effective counter-narrative because acknowledging the penetration would require admitting that Russian air defenses are obsolete. That admission would trigger questions about the hundreds of billions of rubles spent on defense modernization since 2008. It would expose that the S-400 systems protecting Moscow itself may be equally vulnerable. It would validate NATO concerns about Russian military competence that the Kremlin has spent years trying to dispel. The silence is the sound of a leadership that has run out of good options. Individual Russian citizens living near the flight path have begun sharing their experiences on social media platforms, though many posts are quickly removed by authorities. One resident of Pskov posted on Telegram that he saw unusual lights in the sky around 4 in the morning on March 15th, but assumed they were satellites or aircraft at high altitude. Another user from the Kursk region reported hearing a faint humming sound unlike normal aircraft that lasted for approximately 20 minutes around dawn on March 14th. These civilian observations, later correlated with the known drone flight path, suggest that at least some Russian citizens witnessed the operation, even if official channels remain silent. The gap between lived experience and official narrative creates cognitive dissonance that erodes trust in government institutions. When people see evidence contradicting official silence, they begin questioning what else they are not being told. Looking toward future implications, this successful penetration operation establishes a dangerous new precedent that could escalate in unpredictable ways. If NATO can fly autonomous drones over Russia with impunity for intelligence collection, what prevents the same technology from carrying weapons instead of cameras? The transition from surveillance drone to strike platform requires only payload modification. A swarm of 43 drones, each carrying a 5-kilogram warhead, could conduct coordinated strikes against multiple targets simultaneously, overwhelming point defenses through sheer numbers and attacking from multiple vectors. Russian military planners are undoubtedly conducting this exact analysis right now. The escalation potential creates a security dilemma where Russia may feel compelled to develop countermeasures, including potentially dangerous responses such as deploying broader electronic warfare systems that could interfere with civilian aviation, creating hair-trigger response protocols that increase the risk of accidents, or even considering preemptive strikes against drone launch facilities in neighboring countries. The technological arms race this operation triggers will consume billions of dollars and reshape defense priorities for the next decade. Russia will need to invest heavily in developing counter-drone capabilities specifically designed for swarm scenarios. This likely means deploying directed energy weapons including lasers and high-power microwave systems, developing artificial intelligence systems capable of predicting swarm behavior, and creating new sensor networks that can detect drones through alternative signatures such as acoustic sensors or visual recognition systems. According to estimates from Russian defense industry sources speaking anonymously to Kommersant newspaper, upgrading Russia's Western Military District air defenses to counter autonomous drone swarms would require a minimum investment of $8 billion spread over 5 years. That spending comes at a time when Russia's defense budget is already strained by ongoing military operations and economic sanctions limiting access to advanced technology components. The alliance dynamics between the United States, Estonia, Israel, and Ukraine that made this operation possible reveal another dimension of future geopolitical alignment. Ukraine's quantum aeronautics firm provided the revolutionary communication technology that makes the drone swarm possible. This positions Ukraine not as a recipient of Western military aid, but as a peer technology partner contributing unique capabilities that even American defense contractors cannot replicate. According to reporting by Defense News, the quantum-entangled communication system was developed by Ukrainian physicists working in collaboration with the National Academy of Sciences in Kyiv and has no current equivalent in American or European defense arsenals. This technological contribution elevates Ukraine's strategic value to NATO far beyond its geographic position as a buffer state. If Ukraine possesses key technologies that enhance NATO capabilities against Russia, the alliance has concrete incentives to ensure Ukrainian security and independence that transcend ideological commitments to sovereignty and democracy. So what happens next? The immediate future holds several near-certainty developments. First, Russia will implement immediate tactical changes to air defense protocols, likely including more aggressive rules of engagement for ambiguous radar contacts and increased reliance on visual observation posts to supplement electronic detection. Second, Russian electronic warfare units will intensify efforts to develop jamming techniques against quantum communication systems, though current physics suggests this may be impossible with existing technology. Third, NATO will expand drone swarm deployments along the entire Russian border from the Arctic to the Black Sea, creating a persistent surveillance network that provides continuous intelligence updates. And fourth, other countries will rush to acquire similar capabilities, triggering a global proliferation of autonomous drone swarm technology that will fundamentally alter military balance calculations worldwide. The longer-term trajectory points toward a world where traditional concepts of territorial sovereignty and air defense become increasingly meaningless. If any nation with sufficient technological capability can deploy autonomous swarms that penetrate adversary airspace undetected, the entire framework of territorial integrity that has governed international relations since the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648 faces obsolescence. We may be witnessing the early stages of a transition to a new security paradigm where physical borders matter less than technological superiority and where defense against aerial intrusion becomes impossible, regardless of how much money nations spend on traditional air defense systems. This is not hyperbole. This is the logical conclusion of the technological trend line that March 14, 2026 represents. The coming months will reveal whether Russia can develop effective countermeasures or whether NATO's technological advantage in autonomous systems becomes permanent. We are at a critical inflection point. The slowly phase of technological competition is ending. The suddenly phase where capabilities shift overnight and entire defense architectures become obsolete may be much closer than most analysts recognize. Only time will tell whether Russia's silence represents strategic patience while developing countermeasures or whether Moscow simply has no answer to this new reality. Putin set out to restore Russian military prestige and recreate sphere of influence through demonstrating superior power. Today, NATO drones fly over Russian territory photographing military installations while the Kremlin maintains total silence, unable to acknowledge what happened because doing so would require admitting that Russia's air defenses failed completely. The shield Putin promised Russian citizens turned out to be as effective as medieval castle walls against modern artillery. What are your thoughts on how this technological breakthrough will reshape military power in the coming years? Do you think autonomous drone swarms represent the future of warfare, or will effective countermeasures emerge? Don't forget to share your perspectives in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like our video. At TGN, we will continue examining every development in this rapidly evolving technological competition that is rewriting the rules of modern warfare. Presented by TGN. Thank you for choosing us.